What's up guys, you're watching Li-Fi TCG. Got a quick video for you today on Flesh and Blood's Silver Age format. So this is an update on the mid-range Nebula Blade Florian list that I posted on my channel somewhat recently. So just as it happened, right, if only a few days after I posted that video, there was a ban announcement for Silver Age where they unbanned Rootbound Carapace. So that made the deck quite a bit stronger, and there's been a couple of other changes which I'll get into as well. And then I took this deck to the very first Battlegrounds event ever. So, of course, over that weekend there were a bunch of Battlegrounds events taking place, but due to the nature of how time zones work, the one in Auckland, New Zealand was the very first one ever, I believe. And I made top four. So I just thought I'd quickly go over the list and the matches that I played. So, the changes that I made from the previous video. Previously, this list had 2 red Hocus Pocus in it, 2 Unmovable in the sideboard, and 2 Arcane Polarity, right? Both Unmovable and Arcane Polarity being reds. So those are gone. So now I have Rootbound Carapace red in the main deck, now that that's unbanned. In the sideboard, I have Bramble Spark instead of Arcane Polarity in a way. You can think of it like that. And then I've put the red Condemned to Slaughter back into the main deck. So those are the changes. If you're not familiar with the strategy, do have a bit of a longer video where I go into it a bit more in depth, discussing every card. So the idea here is that Nebula Blade is a bit above rate if you can consistently give it the +3, right? So if you pitch a blue, you play a card like this that gives the Nebula Blade +3. Nebula Blade gets +3 from its own effect. You're swinging with a 2-card 7 that makes either 1 or 2 rune chants on hit, depending on if your hero power is online. So if your opponent doesn't cover the breakpoint on this, they're effectively taking 2 extra arcane damage on top of it, which makes it like a 2-card 9, which is very above rate. They will just end up dying to your damage from this. And if they do decide to try to cover the breakpoint on this, they put 3 cards in front of this to block 7. They're just going to end up getting fatigued. So overall, that's the game plan, right? You have a bunch of strong non-attacks that also buff up the sword. This one's very, very good, right? You get the +3, but if your hero power is online, you're getting 2 embodiments as long as you pitch an earth card. So if you're getting the value from the embodiment blocking, this is like a 2-card. I didn't even know how you would calculate that. Like 7 plus the potential on hit from the Nebula Blade plus the blocking value from the embodiments. Very, very strong, right? And you have a few auras in the deck, right? You have the strong yield, harvest season. Not only are these non-attacks with go again, so they activate the sword, right? But then you can banish them from your graveyard with the runic felling song to help activate your hero power. I think one other change that I might have possibly made to the previous version of the list is that I cut the blue cadaverous tilling for Flourish, right? So it's just a case that the blue Flourish converts slightly more easily. If your opponent gives you the tempo, right, you can just throw this down for the extra +2 damage. And also this is a non-attack, so it works slightly better with embodiments. Sometimes you would decompose with blue cadaverous tilling, right, but it was usually not a play you're very happy to make. All right, just a 2-card 6. So yeah, anyway, that's the list. In the sideboard, the only new card really is this Bramble Spark. So I'm not playing Arcane Polarity anymore, just to fit all this in. I just decided that I really wanted another card that would help me convert damage on offense. Bramble Spark is just one of the best ones that the deck has access to. It's just a 0 cost +3, and then you deal the 1 arcane as well. So it's like a 0 for 4 go again, essentially, as long as you can get the fuse off. So the deck doesn't have that many attack actions to convert this on, because this can't give the +3 to the weapon. It only gives +3 to an attack action. So in the main deck, you only have the tilling and the felling song. So if you ever board in Bramble Spark, you have to board it in with the evergreens and the rites of replenishment just to make sure you have enough targets for it. Um, but versus decks like Enigma, for example, you really, really need to have ways that you can push damage. So you have Bramble Spark, and then versus like Kano, for example, you can board this in as well, right? Because you have these D-reacts that are not going to block, right? You might as well have this card that converts to more damage on offense instead. Okay, so yeah, that's the idea. So compared to the normal Florian, right? When I say normal Florian, I mean a list. I think Michael Hamilton played it at the PT that just happened this weekend. Um, so lists like that, they play Read the Runes, they play Runeblood Incantation, they play all 6 copies of Autumn's Touch plus Colors of Aria, just so you can block 3 with your Earth cards. Then they play like Amplify the Arknight, so they can send their big Rune Chant stack, right? It's basically like a stack OTK version of Florian. At the moment, that's like the standard, most popular version of the Florian deck. So this version compared to that version, the Nebula Blade plays way better against board state decks. Like Enigma is a deck that this version can beat. It's definitely not an easy matchup, but the stack version is basically never winning. Dromai is a huge problem versus it's a huge problem for the stack version, right? Especially if they put Themai into play and then you can't play D-Reacts. They just never attack with the Themai, so you can't pop it with Autumn's Touch. All right, then half your cards are turned off and you basically can't do anything. All right, you have no good way to clear out Ashwings as stack Florian unless you happen to draw one of your few poppers, right? This deck has way more poppers. It has this, and then in the sideboard you have 3 more. So the board state decks, even something like Gravy Bones, just mucking around on Talishar when I was testing Gravy for fun. Like I appeared into Stack Florian, I put 2 Chowders in play, and you're gaining 2 life a turn. Right, and as long as you have the AB1 and you're gaining 2 life a turn, it's so hard for them to ever build up a stack that can overcome your life total. So a bunch of weird board state stuff like the stack version can't ever beat. And then against some of the like very aggressive decks, it's still a bit of a question whether you can successfully block them well or not to survive before you can send your big stack. So yeah, so this deck I would say has overall slightly less polarized matchups. So the funny thing is that like very, very slow defensive decks like Oldhim, which are like the most free matchup for the stack version, um, like that is the most unwinnable matchup for this build of the deck with the Nebula Blade. Because the whole premise of this list is that if your opponent is only blocking 2 cards on this, they're dying to damage, and if they're blocking 3 cards on this, they're getting fatigued. If your opponent can reliably block this out with only 2 cards, because their deck is full of like Clash of Heads and stuff, right? Then they can put 2 cards in front of this, they deny you the on hit, and then they just pitch 2 cards and send Sledge back, right? And then you just die, right? That situation is just sort of unbeatable. So interestingly, like the very, very fatiguey Oldhim, even though that's the most free matchup for the stack version of the deck, like it's very, very hard or almost impossible for this Nebula Blade version to beat it, even when you have evergreens and this in your sideboard. Like this does help versus things like Valda, where they don't have so much fatigue potential, right? They're not playing all of the 4 blocks and stuff. Right, I did fatigue a Valda at the Battlegrounds tournament, which I'll get to in a second. But versus fully defensive decks like that Oldhim, it's just not enough. But yeah, so that's the list, and just giving you some idea about why you might want to play this deck compared to the more defensive stack version of the Florian deck. So at the Battlegrounds tournament itself, round 1 I played against KO, I won. Round 2 I played against KO, I won. Round 3 I played against Valda, I won. Round 4 and 5 I played against KOs again and I lost. Round 6, I played against KO again and I won. So 4-2 record, I snuck into the top 8 at 8th place. Quarterfinals, my opponent had a game loss for some reason, so I don't know the full story behind what happened here, but I think they were misbehaving a little bit at the venue. I don't think it was like a gameplay error or like a suspicion of cheating or anything like that. It was just they were being a bit obnoxious, right, in the store essentially. At least I think that's what happened, right? I'm not 100% sure. So anyway, the point is that I didn't have to play the quarterfinal, and then in the semi-final top 4 I lost to another KO. I think so. In the Swiss, this player made me go second, right? And then they figured out that actually based on how the game played out, right? Once they saw like what weapon I was using and stuff, they figured out that actually it would be better for the KO if the KO went second. So that's what they chose to do because they were the higher seed. And then on my turn 1, I think I misplayed as well. Um, I prioritized making the embodiment of this too highly compared to arsenaling a card that would have been better later in the game. So that's, I think, a big reason why I lost as well. So that's a bit disappointing, but top 4 finish is still not bad. Right, there were enough people that there were 6 rounds of Swiss. So yeah, I still find this deck super fun to play. I don't think there would be any changes I would make to the list that I can think of at the moment. Right, I don't really think that ultimate matchup is fixable. Right, there's not really like a stack plan you could pivot into to beat that deck. I wonder if you could just play one Annals of Sutcliffe in the list over something, would that let you beat Mega Fatigue decks? Would that let you have some sort of pseudo stack plan just by itself? But I suspect that that probably wouldn't work when you don't have any copies of Read the Runes, you don't have any copies of um, like Runeblood Incantation or anything like that. Like in the end game, can you just make 2 rune chants per turn with the book, and will that get you there? I don't know. That's something you could possibly think about, but it doesn't sound very plausible to me, but who knows. But yeah, apart from that, I think the list is pretty solid. I guess I still don't know whether the aura package is correct. Like, this card is good if you get the decompose off. You um, banish a earth aura, right? Then you're essentially halfway to getting your hero power turned on, as long as you get your 3 earth cards with your decompose effect. But right, these cards are a little bit not too great, right? The fact that you have to wait a turn to get the effect can be a big liability. They only block 2, of course. So you could try to fit yellow Rootbound Carapace in the list somewhere. I do think that is quite a powerful card, but uh, the problem then is that you're making the deck more defensive, right? You're essentially taking out a card that decomposes on offense for a card that decomposes on defense, and that kind of makes a bunch of your sideboard mappings a bit weird, I think. So yeah, I'm not convinced about that either. But yellow Rootbound Carapace is definitely a card that is tempting to have. Um, but yeah, I just can't think of really the exact list that would be able to use it. Scrolling down here, just checking this maybe board. Yeah, I don't think there's anything here that jumps out to me that I would really want to play. So yeah, if you have any questions about this list or any suggestions, please let me know in the comments below. But for today, that's going to be all. Thanks for watching. This has been Li-Fi TCG signing out.